Welcome on Superweek Live, Arista.
Thank you very much, Kris. Great to be here.
Hey, my friend. Good morning. How are things in Stockholm?
Good. Snowy. Finally, we have a lot of snow, so everything is like it should be.
Yeah, and you're not so much in lockdown as the rest of us.
No, we are on a more flexible model. So obviously restrictions, but not as strict as many other European countries.
Exactly. So Aristo, as the first question, I know you as a very passionate, very data-driven entrepreneur, building Loop, a software company in the, what can I call it, micro-learning, micro-mentoring, not traditional HR space. Could you elaborate a little bit on, well, first of all, introduce yourself.
Sure, thanks. So yeah, I'm the CEO of Loop. We are a Swedish company working in, I would say it's the HR tech market space, but we really focus on reskilling and upskilling employees. So what we do is we have a SaaS platform that we market to companies globally, and what we do is help them to make sure that they constantly have the right skills within the organization. So, for example, we know that digital. Sorry, Kris.
So let's get back to what Loop does. I mean, what is your experience with data?
My experience with data. Oh, sorry. Sure. So, I mean, as any company, we use data in several ways, and I'd say that the core of what we do is to try to find where is the market going by using all the data available. So we really do a lot of research, and we use existing research to understand what is shaping the market today, basically. Then, of course, we use data in all of our business functions. And for example, any other company would do is within marketing, within sales, within product development. So data for us is really an integral part of what we do. And as that, we really treat it as one of our kind of core assets. And when we started, we didn't really know how, for example, if you look at what skills and competencies are relevant today and what skills and competencies are going to be relevant tomorrow, that is really something that data can help you to understand, and that is for us really the core of our business, to constantly keep an eye on what's going on and how our skills developing on the market.
So I don't know if you listened in on the interview I did with Matt Phelan just before from the Happiness Index, but one of the conclusions there is that they have successfully argued that measuring the happiness of employees correlates with business performance in a very clear way. And that's a very different take on analytics, if you will. It's a very different data set from consumer data or traditional HR data, which was very, goal driven and very, did you take this test? Did you pass that? Did you do this, etc. With what led you to create Loop, you must have realized that there's another data set. That's another way to generate an understanding with data that comes from letting people share knowledge, ideas, and I mean, you call it skill-based. I think a skill is something you achieve based on some kind of mentoring or learning process, or listening to someone, or being guided to read the right material, etc. Um, uh, so again, at the essence of what led to Loop, there must have been a realization that there is something that could be captured in data that companies typically do not do today. Is that a correct assumption?
Definitely. I think you're right on the point. I mean, I think that data is I mean, the fun thing about data is that we have so much data, and we just need to understand how to use it, or which data to use. And as you're pointing out,
but maybe the point is we have the wrong data.
Sometimes we do. I mean, we have, I would say we have all the data we need, but we need to use it. And of course, it has to be qualitative data, but also to see it in different ways. For example, I know I didn't listen, unfortunately, to the entire speech before, but if you look at how employees, the happiness correlates to the business value or the business results, obviously it's something that you would expect, but without data backing that up, then it's just, an assumption. So I think it's really important to find, and also to find which angle you want to analyze data from. So as you said, why did we start Loop? I mean, because we saw that there was a huge unused potential within companies, but that potential was at the time just something we felt. We didn't have data to back it up. But once you start doing interviews, you start getting more data out of that, and you really see that, yes, there is data backing this up. So there is a business opportunity here. And then obviously you can build up your data to continuously improve your business model and what you're doing. So I really think that thinking of data in different ways is one of the secrets, or one of the ways that companies really can come up with new interesting things.
So there are two aspects here. One aspect is, how does this data influence business performance? And then there's another discussion, of course, how it plays a role in Loop specifically. But if we focus on the first, I think a lot of viewers of the Superweek live stream here are analysts or practitioners, or maybe on the business side, working in companies that use analytics on a daily basis. What would your advice to them be in terms of A, is it even the right data that they're collecting? B, how can they put that data into context? C, from your experience also as a consultant, what is the right way to go about presenting this data to management?
That's very relevant questions. I think we would need a few hours to go through that in a proper way. But well, I think some obviously
we have 10 minutes. Yeah.
I'll compress it into but seriously, I think that obviously some data analytics are pretty straightforward. You need to keep an eye on some things, and those are kind of built in your business. But as I said, I think you always need to, I mean, when we say innovation, we think of, new ways to do things and new business models, but really, I think innovation has to apply to everything, and how you use data as well. I mean, data is again, one of our most important assets. So if you apply innovation to that, and you start looking at data in a different way. So yes, we've done this with the data we have, but what could we do more? And then you combine that with kind of obviously your business, and how do you see your business model evolving and changing? So the data will support, of course, that. But I do think that the data is a great mine for finding new things that you haven't thought of. And of course, to do that, that's why these new roles, well, new, no, they're not new anymore, but all the data analytics and working with all the information we have, these are so important, because really they can unlock a number of new business opportunities that you didn't see before. So I mean, the best.
Do you have a good example of that, Aristo, from a client?
Yeah, I mean, I think this happens actually every day. If you just think of the more the simplest way is to look at the data and say, what more can we do with this data? I know, for example, a construction company that had sensors for streets, and then they started measuring the traffic, and then from that they began to do more things with the data about the traffic, and then they created additional services that were actually quite far from their core business, but very meaningful in their ecosystem. And obviously, it meant they could use the entire data they had to create new services and additional business. So really, just look at your data and try to think of it without the boundaries of the framework of your own business, just to see what more can we do with this. And often there is a lot more that you can do.
And I guess your point is also think outside the box. Don't accept the conventions of what metrics are the right ones.
Definitely. I would say that is really the key. So the metrics are often metrics that have been there and they're well oiled and they're fine to work with from a operational business perspective. So they're supporting you, but it's really about, I would say, again, innovation and continuous improvement. You continuously improve the way you do business by looking at the data you have and both optimizing the business, but also finding new ways of doing business. And I think a lot of times you're surprised of what kind of data you have.
But Matt made a point in the other interview that many business leaders on the management level and up are maybe a little bit afraid of exposing how little data they have or their knowledge on what data can do. Do you see that also? I mean, you have some really good examples of global corporations that you have worked with in Loop that are realizing, and we'll come to that in a second, but that are realizing how powerful the right data is for driving organizational change.
I think really that is changing a lot. So yes, traditionally probably that has been one challenge, but I do think that what we're seeing now is that companies are really exploring new ways again to use the data. I mean, we have telecoms that have used during the COVID crisis, they have used their traffic data to understand where people were gathering and where they're respecting the restrictions. And that is, even though probably it's not generating money, it's not monetizable right now, but it's a branding and a marketing thing. So that is how they use data in the data they had available. And that is data they have. So it's not something they're kind of, it's just in their systems. So basically it's very simple for them to use it. But I think we have a lot of examples of other companies that are just, really looking at, okay, what can we do with the data we have and what more data can we gather or unlock to do more things, to provide more services, more products. So I really think that is something that has changed a lot in the past years.
It's almost like the role of a data analyst needs to change from someone that describes performance of what exists to be someone that suggests business opportunities in what could exist product-wise or market-wise with data.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean,
I don't know how do you see that? Sorry, please.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree, and I think that is something that also is changing. So you see the role of data analyst or these kind of roles that are kind of climbing up in the organizations and are closer to the decision making, because as you said, they're going from monitoring the performance to really come up with new ways to generate value for the company. So that is something that probably is very company specific, how mature the company is, but I think that is definitely a trend that will continue to grow as data is increasingly important.
Alex, so you've been doing interviews and also for podcasting, for the Loop podcast with some business leaders. In your experience, what is the key data that they mention have given them insights to change their business?
Well, I think that it's more a kind of unstructured actual data. So it's more all these forces that are shaping companies. It's from digital to globalization, all these things that we hear every day. They're really putting a lot of pressure and sense of urgency on business leaders. So that is the data they hear every day. And that is also, again, about the fun thing about data. It's not like really the numbers looking at, of course, that is also, but it's not like sales are going up and down. Those are always important. But now it's really what is happening? What is the change going on? Where is the change? How are things changing? I think those numbers and those perspectives are really key to business leaders worldwide, because it's affecting everyone. And we all have to cope with that and understand, how am I going to have to change? And that is a bit more difficult to capture in data analytics, when it's so many different dimensions playing in.
So I think those of the listeners that have been to the Superweek over the last 10 years will remember that we had this joke going for many years that, without data, you're just another person with an opinion. That used to be how it was years ago. Then I think there's been a period in between where maybe we had, I hate to say, but maybe we had too much data, or the barrier now is not having the data or generating the data. It's the ability to put that data into context. I think that plays into what you're saying also. These business leaders sense urgency. They know that they can find some of the answers in the data, and they know that they can get additional data very easily. The challenge is really in the bridge between what does the data show and the ability to put that into operational or tactical, or maybe even on a strategic level, change the organization kind of decisions, go into new markets, etc. So let's talk a little bit about Loop specifically, because I would argue also that Loop couldn't exist without this realization that there is data on the value of skill sharing. Can you elaborate a little bit on what it was that you saw that led you, that led to Loop?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, basically we saw that each and every company has so much potential, that is the skills the employees already have. And we also saw that this potential is often not put at work, fully put at work. So from our experiences and from basically data we gathered, we saw that, yes, there is a basically unlimited potential within each and every company. What if we could unlock it and let it flow? And this really ties into also the pace of change that companies are really struggling to keep up with new trends and techniques. But at the same time, they have a lot of skills internally that are not really tapped into fully. Obviously, to some extent, they always are. But so that is the data that really kind of convinced us to start Loop and help companies to share these skills. And then obviously we've been monitoring the results, and that is in terms of employee satisfaction, retention, skilling, reskilling, the boost of so that is really, I think, an example of how data can be applied to create a business model, basically, because that's what we did. There wasn't really more than an idea of something that we thought was a problem. But then we started investigating, realized this is a challenge for companies basically all over the world. And after that, we started using the data we have. Yeah.
Continue, please. Kris. No, sorry, I cut you off.
No, I just wanted to that after that we started using the data we have within Loop to produce more insights. So, for example, we produced a white paper last year where we see what are the skills that are in demand, because we know what people want, which skills people want. So not only what they have today, but what they want to develop. And that is great, because then you can also kind of cross-verify with what's going on in other research, and on a macro level, how these skills align with the research we see out there. So it's really fun to twist and work with the data continuously, and find these new perspectives and new insights.
And I think you could basically argue that this is data that the company could have themselves. The clients of Loop, they could have this data themselves, but you are helping them put the data into context, and you are applying a context to that data and helping them understand how valuable that data set is.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I mean, as you say, we are just helping them to unlock the power of that knowledge and data, basically. So we're really a facilitator in that sense. But they do have all the data and the knowledge internally, and yeah, basically we are just providing a way to use that.
But I mean, the premise of my interview with you was, do you agree that Loop couldn't exist without this? That the data is the value in the context that the Loop provides, and that there is a whole. You're one example. Mad in Happiness Index is an example. There is a plethora of companies starting now based on that idea. So as a wrapping question, we're running out of time, unfortunately. I would ask you to look ahead a little bit and say, where does this lead? If you were someone starting out now, would you start a business based on finding something you could do with data? How would you go about it? It's a very abstract question, I know, but I'd love to hear your perspective on it.
Yeah, I think that data is the most important asset. So for me, it's like an open door. Yes, I would definitely, and I think that you need to use data and find a way to use data to create a business. Obviously, there are businesses that are very that are not so data dependent, and there are businesses that are more. But I think at the end of the day, every company is depending on data. So that is kind of. But then again, is how do you find the right angle to create, if you're looking at something new, or how do you find the right angle on the data, the right perspective to do it in a different way? Because sometimes the data is available to everyone, and then it's just the way we use it that creates the innovation and the value. But just to reply to a question, I mean, again, without data, it's very difficult to do any kind of business, to be honest, I think. So that is really the starting point. And then again, try to see data in a different way. What can you do with the data that either you have or you could have, and obviously try to find if there is a business need for what you're doing.
So in Loop, you could say one side of it is that skill sharing drives business growth, and the other side of it is to actually show that the data from that teaches the organizations something that they didn't know before.
Yeah, I would say that is perfectly put. So obviously the skills are super important for the organization in a lot of ways to keep up with what's happening out there. But then also that we really help, or we see a transformation in terms of mindset and culture, which is driven by the results, which is basically data. So it kind of strengthens the process where the results are pushing even more the adoption, because you see how this way of working and the data you're using is
fantastic. Aristo, thanks a lot for doing this. Thanks for going on the live stream.
Thanks for having me.
Much appreciated. Now we will leave it over to Matt Gershoff. Really, really good guy. I really consider him a good friend. And his talk from last year on multi-armed bandits. Hang on, stay on. This is a really good talk. You're in for a good treat. Thanks, Aristo.